Hello Internet, it's me Josh, the Aging Gamer. Happy Halloween! And to celebrate this most haunting of holidays, I want to review something creepy, something gory, something just bloody disgusting. I want to review Splatterhouse. This 1988 arcade side-scrolling slash-em-up was one of the first of its kind, showing disturbing, grotesque imagery way before Mortal Kombat made it popular. The original Splatterhouse was pretty interesting, but I'm not going to review that today. I want to review its remake, the game that attempted to revive the series but ultimately failed. Is it that bad or is it just overlooked? Let's find out, ladies and gentlemen. This is Splatterhouse. Splatterhouse, a game filled with blood, violence, and occasional nudity. This game had a strong presence before it was actually released. It was the first video game to ever be featured on the cover of the hit horror magazine Fangoria. The damsel in distress of the game, Jennifer, was also featured in a spread in Playboy. Seriously. And with comic book writer Gordon Rennie of Judge Dredd fame writing the story and dialogue for the game, and the soundtrack featuring the likes of Mastodon, Lamb of God, and Five Finger Death Punch, the game was looking promising and seemed to have a clear vision of appealing to fans of the over-the-top horror genre. So what happened? Well, let's take a look at the game. Let's start with the story. College student Jennifer Willis is set to have an interview with Dr. Henry West, a necrobiology professor. Jennifer's boyfriend Rick Taylor tags along to protect her in case something bad happens. Well, something bad happens. Rick is attacked and left for dead while the professor kidnaps Jennifer and pulls her away. A mask on the ground speaks out to Rick, who puts it on and freaking hulks out. With his new supernatural strength and abilities, Rick must rescue Jennifer before Dr. West sacrifices her. There's also time traveling, dimension traveling, and creepy dolls and clowns and shit. So the game is an action-style beat-em-up hack and slash, similar to the likes of God of War, just not nearly as polished. As Rick, you can punch enemies, throw enemies, charge at enemies, and even cut enemies. As you kill everything around you, you'll get blood points, which you can use for upgrading moves and whatnot. Also, as you beat up enemies, you'll be filling up this meter here, which allows you to enter into this crazy berserker mode and kill like crazy. And on top of that, you can also perform something called splatter kills. When an enemy is near death, grapple them and you can violently destroy them.
Let me put it like this. You are fucked.
But even though you can perform all these cool moves, the gameplay suffers from a few things. It's a lot of little things it does wrong that just ends up being a big problem. Where do we start? Well, first off, the camera is pretty damn wonky. You have some slight control, but it somehow feels like you have no control at all. Also, pretty quickly, you'll start seeing the same enemies over and over, so the game starts to feel very repetitive. The game also gets glitchy at times, like this section where I can even walk through the damn door. That's ridiculous! And worst of all, the loading sucks. Not only are there long load times, which is pretty infuriating on its own, but the loading screens have you staring at the likes of this. But there are some saving graces about the game. The presentation is fantastic in this game. While the in-game graphics can be pretty dreadful at times, the cutscenes visually look pretty good, and the voice acting is actually performed very well. It doesn't sound all cheesy and forced like a lot of games. And speaking of voice acting, tell me, does the voice of the Terror Mask sound familiar to you?
A 2x4. Handy. Let's do some fucking carpentry.
That's the voice of Jim Cummings. He is the voice of my cartoon generation. You might recognize him as such characters as Winnie the Pooh, Tigger, Pete, Razul, Bonkers, Cat, Fat Cat, Fuzzy Lumpkins, and Darkwing Duck. And they make him say things like this.
Ain't your mama, asshole?
That's freaking awesome. Going back to the game though, you'll be going through 12 different stages as Rick attempts to save Jennifer from Dr. West. There's 12 different stages, and you'll get some different locations, like Dr. West Mansion, a circus, and a meat factory, but each level consists of the same ideas. Beat up a bunch of enemies in one area, then move on to the next and do the same thing. Rinse and repeat until you fight a boss. Some of the levels throw in a few gimmicks to try and switch things up, but like I previously mentioned, with repetitive enemies and repetitive gameplay, it doesn't make much of a difference. Though you'll want to replay these levels multiple times if you want to collect all the little extras. There's journals of Dr. West hidden throughout the levels, as well as pictures of Jennifer. The pictures are torn into 5 or so pieces, and it's up to you to make them whole again. It might be a cheap fan service, but I'll take it. If you're a fan of the arcade titles, there's some pretty fun stuff in here for you too. There's some sections to the game that play homage to the original arcade game, which is pretty cool. And hell, you can even unlock those original arcade titles. Splatterhouse 1, 2, and 3 are fully playable in this game. So, all in all, there's some cool bosses here and there, and even some cool cutscenes, but the level designs feel uninspired, and you're bound to run into a fair amount of glitches. Like I mentioned before, I really like the presentation of this game. Over-the-top violence and horror? Awesome. Killer soundtrack? Awesome. Great voice acting? Awesome. Occasional fan service? Awesome! It's just a shame this game didn't get, say, another year of development to work out all the kinks. Who knows how the series would have gone from there? Such a shame we'll likely never see a sequel either, which really sucks because this game ends on a goddamn cliffhanger! If all this over-the-top violence isn't your bag, then this game definitely isn't for you. For someone like myself though, I love the idea of the game more than the game itself. But these are just my opinions. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a like. Go ahead and subscribe too so you don't miss out on future videos. Like always, I thank you guys for watching, and happy Halloween!